The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has once again proven that it's not so much into the whole rock and roll thing, or at least specifically for heavy music. Rather, it's about getting attention for big names to go in and an artist having the spirit of rock and roll. Whatever that means in the Rock Hall, who knows? This video is an updated video from what I made years ago, as some of those entries were actually put into the Rock Hall. So here we have a 2025 version looking at 10 bands and artists that absolutely should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and everyone in Cleveland should be ashamed that they are not already. This is not a top 10, no ranking, just a list. Also, there are rules for criteria to get nominated by the Rock Hall, but every name I suggest fits that criteria. No excuses, these names should be at least nominated more, let alone inducted. Sponsored by Factor. Stop getting takeout and overpriced fast food delivery, which will do damage to your body and wallet, and have a good chance of being wrong when you finally receive the order. Get set up with Factor and skip any meal prep time to make your meals stress-free. Get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door, with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie. And if you're going to be gone for a week and need to pause, Factor makes it easy for scheduling your delivery dates and pausing deliveries when needed. And if you're new to Factor, you can save big time on it. Use my link in the description or the code ROCKEDFEB50 at checkout to get 50% off and free shipping off your first Factor box. Support Rocked and get better eating habits with Factor. Thanks for checking this video out. You know how these videos work. Let's get to it. Starting off with a band that is currently nominated again, but not yet inducted. Will this be the year that Soundgarden finally gets the credit it's due from so many albums sold and being one of the big four in grunge? Well, with the remaining members of Soundgarden occasionally working together on guest collaborations, along with the estate and recordings of Chris Cornell not being as rough of a situation as it was since Cornell's passing, I think now would be a great time to appreciate Soundgarden and relive some of the band's highlights. I know it'll be a bittersweet moment because the Rock Hall won't be able to do anything without paying proper respects to Chris Cornell, but I think the body of work should still be recognized in a formal setting, or as formal of a setting in Cleveland, Ohio can be. Looking at the 2025 list of nominees, it's easy for me to put Soundgarden on the short list of names that absolutely could go in this year, and few people would argue it. Then again, as this video goes on, you'll see that the names not even getting nominations also belong and would be easy choices that no one would argue. Putting Alice in Chains into the Hall of Fame would round out the big four of grunge, and by the same definition and criteria, Alice in Chains is also an easy selection. They've been nominated previous years, skipped over for other names, and time moves on. I get that Alice in Chains coming back as a unit with William DuVall make people divide Alice in Chains past and present, but regardless of that, the band Alice in Chains is still worthy of listening of a big name in heavy music, especially with how much of an impact they still have in rock. Part of me wonders if the current generation of AIC is why the people voting and whatever group of people pull names out of a hat for nominations every year stay away from saying Alice in Chains year over year. If so, that's a crap reason because there are plenty of bands and artists already inducted to the Hall that are still making new music and touring, including grunge like Pearl Jam. So my only logic for Alice in Chains not getting attention is gone. Let me know if you can think of another reason for Alice in Chains not being inducted, because I have nothing. I had to double check some sources and lists, and then I found out the terrible logic that Ronnie James Dio is not inducted. Not only is this a slap in the face to Dio and metal in general, but it also makes me want to send a Dio-style dragon on someone. There's no excuse for this. There's not one for Dio not being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The arguments of the Rock Hall not supporting metal enough means nothing in a case like this, as Dio is a staple and figurehead of classic heavy metal and high-level D&D campaigns. For those wondering if he was inducted with Black Sabbath years ago, nope, they did not include Dio on that induction. One of the best voices in rock and metal history just keeps getting snubbed year over year. This is the one that the Rock Hall board and committee and everyone involved should be ashamed of themselves over. The legend of Holy Diver not being celebrated by a bunch of suits in a stuffy auditorium is a travesty, and this is another easy slam dunk option they could have listed. I brought Scorpions up in the previous video, and even if the Rock Hall is more American-centric, Scorpions still belong in the Hall of Fame for many reasons ranging across decades. More proof that Rock Hall is more of a show and less of a true appreciation of heavy music. Scorpions not even getting nominated kind of proves how the Rock Hall prefers big-name US and North American attention, even if it's not rock. Hence country and pop and hip-hop names all getting in before Scorpions even getting a nomination. Europe had metal in the 70s and 80s also, I promise. I joke around, but I would not be surprised if many working with the Rock Hall did not actually know that, or even knew the legacy of Scorpions, the big hits, the controversial album covers, the massive shows. That cannot happen because it's not Metallica or Nirvana though, so Rock Hall just can't pay attention. This is an example of what the Hall could be with rock and metal, and how they could expand with heavy music in other nations while sticking with the theme of rock and roll, instead of inviting Dolly Parton. I love Dolly Parton though, don't get that twisted. I do understand that Billy Corgan and Smashing Pumpkins are not everyone's thing, even within the alternative world, but looking at the 90s and the dominance the band had, while still making new music up until present day, it's all worth an induction. The original lineup also should be the ones to go in, even if there is some off-again, on-again contention between Billy Corgan and literally every previous band member. I mean, if Billy can make up with James Iha and move on, then get them both together and put the Pumpkins in. Corgan has gone public with statements that he feels the Pumpkins' legacy and standings reflects more than some institution's recognition. So a statement like that is not going to make the people at the Rock Hall love Corgan though. This is another case of matter of time, even if it's another 10 years before it happens. The band is still touring, more members included on stage for live performances, and Billy Corgan still wanting to perform new stuff but relenting and playing 90s hits because it's what fans want, including the Rock Hall. They want the old stuff too. We now go back to another session of screaming from metal fans who demand the true god of airheads, Lemmy, be given the adoration and praise he deserves by putting Motorhead into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Give him a separate little shrine in Ohio dedicated just to the hat. Motorhead was nominated once in 2020, and that's the end of that. At the time, everyone questioned why Motorhead wasn't already in, but then again, it was 2020, and literally everyone on the planet had other things going on, including voters for the Rock Hall. Put Motorhead in. I don't see how this would even be an argument. The non-metal lovers and people who are not familiar with heavy music in passing even know who Motorhead is. This would be another easy choice. This is a rare metal band that transcended genre and became such a part of pop culture and mainstream that Motorhead is just Motorhead. From Ace of Spades to every Triple H theme song, Lemmy and company just have been a consistent staple of metal, even after Lemmy's passing. Just kidding, Lemmy is God. I'm not sure it'll happen in the band's lifetime, which is a shame because Tool have definitely carved out their place in rock and metal history, especially when you consider longevity and their Fibonacci-loving fan base. Tool is still touring and have committed to a new album as of making this video. I get they're still active in the metal and music world, so it's a good reason to get their attention to put them in the Hall of Fame for all they've been a part of. Rock Hall criteria has all the boxes checked for Tool. It would be positive attention for the Rock Hall putting a still active multi-platinum band that sells out arenas worldwide. It will look good for them, the band, and Tool has been eligible for a while, so it would work well. Is it possible, however, that the Rock Hall does not trust Maynard accepting an award and making a public speech on a live mic at such a prestigious awards show? Possible, but for me, that's all more reason to put Tool on and televise it and get more attention on the Rock Hall being a stuffy, out-of-touch organization. Just give Maynard and the rest of the guys a live mic, let them go nuts with it. As Slayer is mostly retired, and I say mostly because they played a few festivals last year and were awesome, if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame want to give credit to the heaviest of the big four and actually get some metal credit back, Slayer would be the obvious answer. I think this is 100% image issue for the Rock Hall not wanting to tie itself with a band like Slayer and instead want happy fun time names mostly and going back to yesteryear or going to rap and country or pop. If Tool is too fringe for the Rock Hall, Slayer is definitely going to have a problem. That's a shame because decades of thrash and scaring parents everywhere, potentially demonic music, all while Tom Araya and Kerry King laughed at the reactions is more than enough reason to accredit Slayer with a Hall of Fame induction. Metallica's already in, and I think if Slayer is retired from making new music, it's a good reason to put Slayer in now while the group is still around to accept it and being able to be appreciated by the heavy music world in person. Induct Slayer on the same ballot as Mariah Carey if you have to, whatever, just get Slayer in. This is the Hear Me Out entry because when most people hear Korn as a suggestion, most people would laugh at the idea. But with so many albums sold and endless tours and festival headliners and being a fixture of a unique sound in rock, Korn has a great argument for going in. I don't know if this will ever happen, and I get it may not happen for a long time, but Korn is a massive part of the late 90s and early 2000s sound in rock, and they stayed relevant since their debut in the mid-90s. Honestly, Korn has more argument for going in than some names already in the Rock Hall. I'm saying this as someone who doesn't even love everything Korn has done, but I also think that this is more than a fair name to at least nominate once. Come on, Jonathan Davis's scat singing is still making memes for us to this day. Also, like Mariah Carey, Korn have a Christmas song. So for the old people voting and submitting names, that's another good reason that shouldn't matter, but probably does. They love Christmas songs. We all act like the Rock Hall's criteria for nomination is legit, but honestly, there are no hard rules. Anything goes. Ending with the entry that roughly every Rock Hall observer has screamed at least once: why isn't Iron Maiden in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I'm not sure I can add any more discussion to the existing conversation, but here's me trying. Regardless of what Bruce Dickinson said about the Rock Hall being worthless and a sham, not having Iron Maiden in the Hall of Fame does make the Hall look worthless and a sham. So either the Rock Hall keeps ignoring one of the greatest metal bands ever and keeps angering fans, or they rip the band-aid off and get it over with. I also think it's a problem because Iron Maiden would totally be a headliner name that year, but the Rock Hall wouldn't want to admit that not putting them in for so long was a mistake. So how did they get around that and putting them in and not inviting Iron Maiden so that Dickinson can rub it in on the mic? My solution? Do it anyway. The credibility of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would increase significantly if Iron Maiden was finally put in. Ignoring Iron Maiden while putting in so many non-rock and metal acts is how we got to this mess in the first place. That being said, I want to talk about the name Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and why it should stay with that name, as opposed to the literal thousands and thousands of complaints online saying that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame should change its name because it doesn't reflect rock and roll anymore. I do understand the argument, but I for one hope they never change the name. That's because if they change it to General Music Hall of Fame or something, that means any rock or metal band getting nominated is way less likely to happen, if ever. The name change would abandon all rock and metal going forward, and you'd never see another band or artist in heavy music get nominated, because then the Music Hall would be catching up to put in big names outside of rock and metal. I am also confident there will be many people who leave the comment, change the name, it's not Rock and Roll Hall of Fame anymore, on this video, and not even listen to what I just said. Some people just type their comments out and don't listen. It's YouTube, that's okay. My stance is that I don't care if other names outside of heavy music get put in the Hall of Fame, so long as more heavy music names keep getting put in sooner than later. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has not done a great job of that over the past decade plus. If you're interested, I did a recent video about the Grammys and when they actually got the Best Metal Performance category right since the early 90s. It doesn't happen often, but there's a video in the description and on screen if you want to check out what happened there and the times the Grammys got metal right. Finally, here's a cat. Pearl here was helping me edit through most of this video. It's getting late, but he's still wide awake, making sure everything's up to par. Pearl also wants to thank Chris Doman, Brandon Bruce, Hymn Song Variations, and Dom Noble.